pelvis. You have one. I have one today, I think. Let's just check. Feel your pelvis. What are you going to feel? I have the pelvis right here, and there's quite a bit you could possibly feel. So just touch areas of your pelvis and get a sense of shape and quite a construction, isn't it? So when you think of your pelvis, what is it that you see? I have a pelvis here that you could say it's almost like a bony container. It's a bony box, a winged bony box. But is it? Is it? And when we talk about the pelvis, what is the bit of the pelvis that interests you? And a lot of attention, I think, gets people with the pelvis is the pelvic floor. That's what they're thinking most about or concerned most about, and that could be because there's an epidemic through the world of issues with the pelvic floor. But I'm going to say let's not look at the pelvis just as this kind of boxy unit, but we could look at it as it really is. Really is, which is 4 bones. I wish I had another pair of hands right now, but I don't, so you'll have to see what you can see. But we have 4 bones. And you go, wait a minute, okay. Wait a minute, I only see 3 bones right now. But you have a joint here between the sacrum and the coccyx. So you have a tailbone here, a coccyx, a sacrum, and 2 rather large winged ears. And this is where I think the pelvis really starts to get interesting, because you can see maybe it is more than just a pelvic floor. Why? Well, let's take a look at this bone that goes in the center. And if we take that out and say, well, what is this part of? It's your spine. This is your spine. It's the lowest part of your spine. It's fused vertebrae and vestigial vertebrae. This is part of your spine. So when your spine's moving, this moves. Right? So this is your spine. Oh, so what's this then? What are these kind of winged things then? They're part of your legs. They are like a ball bearing between your legs and your spine. It's a different way to look at the pelvis, isn't it, than, oh, it's something there, big boxy thing. It is separate joints that have movement in them. And this is more appendicular, legs. So what the legs do, this has to pay attention to. What the spine does, this does. And this really interests me because it's a perspective that isn't necessarily thought about when we think of the pelvis, and especially the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is the bit that's more at the bottom, right? It's the floor. But whatever connects the bones down here must be affected by what's happening up here, right? And the spine, what's happening in the spine, because the spine has the pelvic floor connections at the very bottom here to your tailbone, to your sacrum. But what about what's happening to the spine further up? It is all connected, and it's a really important thing to remember than to just see, oh, the pelvis is just, it's a pelvis or something, right? So it interests me to get to know the geography of all of the pelvis, not just what the muscles are at the base. That's kind of superfluous almost, because whatever's happening further up the line to what's attached to here, so what would be attached to here? How about some abdominal muscles here, right? Abdominal muscles between these points here. What's attached here at the sides, and you can kind of touch at the sides of these crests here, and what's attached to here. And that would be things like your glute muscles. What's attached more at the back here? Up here. QL. So that kind of deeper area there. And what about here? Your lat muscles, big back muscles. And they attach to your arm. Oh, hell's bells. That's a lot of connections away from the pelvic floor. Hey, I haven't even finished. What about down here? What's attached down here? This part, this area. Well, what about your inner thigh muscles, your adductor muscles? What about here? This is your sit bone, right? What about here? What's attached here? How about some hamstring muscles? Oh. So this is really a kind of a hub, a connector between the upper body and the lower body. And it's radiating out in all different directions. So whatever's happening in the abdominal muscles, the back muscles, the adductor muscles, inner thigh muscles, the hamstring muscles, and of course many more connections that I haven't mentioned, will affect the pelvic floor. I like to examine all of those different perspectives and feel those changes in all of those different areas to get a better perspective of movement in my daily life, because all of these things will affect your movement in daily life. Walking, standing, getting up and down from a seat, climbing stairs. All of these things involve movement in the joints here. And if we can see that movement in those joints, sacroiliac joint, where the pubic bones meet at the front here, clarity on the hip joint here. If we can have better clarity of these parts, then our movement overall will improve, because this is your center of gravity. And if things are balanced well, with a clear perception, inner perception of this area, you will move better as a whole and your posture will improve. It takes patience to get to know the geography, but it's feelable. You can touch the pelvis, so just give yourself another feel of the pelvis. Feel some of the bony shapes. Move it a little bit and learn to love all of the different parts. So especially if you have some sort of an issue or problem, your pelvis is so multidimensional, feelable, lovable, that you can begin to make some changes by getting to know her kindly, with curiosity and love. So very simple, just rub across the pelvic crests, enjoy a breath or two, and you'll be rubbing some of those muscles at the upper part of the pelvis. And then you can take yourself across to a sit bone, down here, a little rub there, shift and a little rub to the other side. And then you can find your sacrum and your tailbone at the back, rub down there. And then we can trace along the pubic bone at the front, pubic bones, and the branches that the pelvis has. So connecting the pubic bones, and the pubic bones connect to the sit bone. That's a little bit more, you've got to get deep and down in there. And just enjoy feeling some of the structures, the shapes of the pelvis. So we free it from being this bony box that we don't know what on earth it is, to something that feels more familiar and more connected to all of the rest of the body. The spine, the legs, even the arms. So I hope you enjoy that little mini connection to your pelvis, and I'm around doing Franklin Method classes focused on the pelvis right now, so feel free to drop in on Thursdays at 2 p.m. in the Zoom room and get a little bit clearer, no, a lot clearer about the world of your pelvis and all of its far-reaching connections. Have fun today with your pelvis. Bye-bye.